What is the worst thing you have done to your ex-boyfriend or girlfriend? Story 1. I had just found out my ex-wife had been screwing a coworker for 6 months. She no longer wanted to be with me and was moving in with him. The night before she was so move all her shit out, I had a few drinks. She was out with her new man. Then a few more. Stewing in my anger, I took a spray bottle filled with bleach and water and spritzed down all her clothes. Unnoticeable until she did the next wash, then she nearly stroked out with rage. New dude dumped her in about another 6 months and she tested the waters in getting back together with me. I went forward with the divorce. Story 2. I was sleeping and having a nightmare. My girlfriend gets up to blow her nose and the noise startles me awake. In reflex, I sat up and punched her straight in the face while shouting, "I'm not going down that easy." I had no idea it was her. She was literally stunned. I felt terrible. Story 3. I was trying to teach my current girlfriend how wrestlers hit their opponents and I totally misjudged how far she was from my fist. Ended up decking her in the face hard as buck. I felt like shit for a month until one night while sleeping, she gave me an elbow drop, counted to 3 and proclaimed herself Federation Champion. Story 4. This was accidental. About a month after my boyfriend and I broke up, my best friend asked me to be the maid of honor at her wedding. There's a place called Brands in our city that provides both dresses and men's suits. So her and her fiancé got the entire wedding party together to go try on our bridesmaids' dresses and groomsmen's tuxedos. Brands is family owned but very majestic and classy. When we got there we were served champagne. After my fitting I went over to look at the wedding dresses they had available. I saw this outrageously slutty wedding dress. It looked a lot like this. I yelled for my friend to come over and take a look at it and she dared me to try it on, so I did. So I put this dress on and start hamming around. My friends are taking photos and just having a good time. We were a little buzzed from the champagne when the bride's brother walks out of the dressing room and asks if anyone wanted the rest of his champagne. One of my friends snapped a picture right as I grabbed the champagne out of her brother's hand. A couple of days later I get these incredibly insane texts from my ex calling me a liar and a whore and just about any other name you could think of. He said something along the lines of, "I hope you and your new husband die in a fire." I asked him what the hell he was talking about and he mentioned seeing my wedding pictures on Facebook. I log in and sure enough my friend tagged me in the picture where I had the wedding dress on and her brother is handing me his champagne in his tuxedo. I started laughing so hard I cried. Then I deleted my ex from Facebook. TLDR, my ex thinks I married my best friend's brother a month after we broke up. Story 5. When I was middle school aged, I was a bit awkward. I would bloom out of this in just a few years, and convinced that everyone my age had to have a girlfriend. Feeling desperately behind, I dated the first girl that showed any kind of interest at all, despite her being very, very bad looking, overweight and not a match personality-wise either. After our first real date, she kissed me and I was so repulsed by her shuddericness, I had a friend call her the next day and say that I was killed in a car wreck. As we went to different schools, I was able to apparently pull this off. I told my sister, this was pre-cell phones, to answer all phone calls and participate in the ruse. It only took about a week to feel so guilty that I called her and told her about what happened. This is probably the worst thing I have ever done to another person my whole life. Story 6. For my birthday, my ex-GF offered me a night of sex where I would command everything I'd want from her. We were really drunk. At the end of the session, I was about to come on her face. She knew I wanted to do this for a long time. Right when I was about to come, she started impersonating my mother. About 2 weeks later, for her birthday, I woke up at 5 a.m. She had been out with friends the night before and went to bed shit-faced at 3 a.m. I readied iTunes with the song I Got You Babe at high volume and started masturbating. I hit play 5 seconds before coming on her face. Story 7. One of my first girlfriends. We dated for over a year and were both virgins for the entirety of it. Near the end of the relationship, a bunch of my friends felt like she was intentionally keeping the V-card as a tool to manipulate me, so they created a public online petition for us to have sex. Needless to say, our relationship ended rather quickly after she caught wind of it. The fact that it had close to 10,000 signatures by the end of it didn't help as well. The worst thing I ever did was not stop that from going up. Looking back on it, I was just fine waiting. Story 8. After I found out he was cheating on me with a 15-year-old, he was 24, I was 20, I got one of those tot finder stickers that parents put on their kids' windows to let firefighters know which bedrooms the kids are in, and I stuck it on the hood of his car. Story 9. I'm very tall. My girlfriend was about 19 inches shorter than I, 4 feet 11 inches. Once, very drunk, we were talking about politics. Then our height difference. I, being a genius, combined the two, questioning her about getting an entire vote. The X part came pretty quickly. Story 10. Shortly after we broke up, an ex-girlfriend of mine dated a homosexual guy who hadn't come out yet. He's out now, but back then everyone knew he was gay except for him and my ex-girlfriend. I was at a concert with some friends and I knew my ex and her boyfriend were there, too. The venue was naive enough to allow you to send text messages to an SMS shortcode and have them display anonymously on a large screen. Carefully, I crafted the best message I could to my ex-girlfriend that would get past the censor. Your boyfriend likes boys too. The fallout was instant and brilliant. My ex and her not quite out gay boyfriend were livid. Somehow they just knew it was from me and that it was directed to them. A mutual friend went over to them on the other side of the floor to say hello, and he returned to tell me that the ex and her boy were so angry they were considering leaving. The next day my inbox exploded with angry emails from anyone who heard the story. A very angry instant message conversation with the ex also followed, ending in her telling me to stay out of her life. It was a very asshole thing for me to do and I should be ashamed. The thing is, I'm not. It was the best real-life trolling I've ever done. If you made it this far, please consider pressing the subscribe and like button. Now continue to the video. Story 11. I dated a really religious girl. No joke, Bible camp and all. Me, being an atheist was not a good thing to her or her family, and so she gently tried to convert me. She started asking me questions about why I don't believe, blah blah blah. So, I asked her questions in return, in kind of a, but how do you know that, blah 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 way. It's just that if I was going to be converted, I'd want to know why it was the best move. I was completely expecting to get the usual dead ends, e.g. faith, the Bible is the word, mysterious ways, etc., but instead, she actually spent time thinking about it. She'd take a solid day of thinking before responding to some of my questions. Then, one day she was like, I don't think I believe in that bullshit anymore. Today, she's more of an out and open atheist than I am. She credits, and thanks me, for getting her out of that. The thing is that she'd had these conversations many times before. I don't think that my questions were particularly good. I mean, any reasonable person could have come up with them. But the thing that made this different, I think, is that I was a safe person whom she trusted. I never wanted to convert her, all my questions were about why I should believe in what she does. I feel sometimes like maybe I unknowingly abused my position and accidentally converted my, then, girlfriend. I know there are good things, she says she's more comfortable to be herself, but there are also bad things. Her friendships with her childhood still religious friends is often strained, which came from this. TLDR, dated religious girl, made her atheist. Possible inception. I may have accidentally violated the Prime Directive. Story 12. Sent her an empty Tiffany & Co. box after I found out she had cheated on me and gotten pregnant pretty soon after we had a couple of conversations about moving in together. I packed up her stuff from my place and mailed it back to her mom's house, where she was living when she was sleeping with other men. With the box on top. Box was a Tiffany & Co. ring box, but had come with a bookmark that I had bought for my mother. Story 13. 2 occurrences, none of which are my stories though, but I think they're appropriate enough to tell. My cousin, who isn't the greatest person, went to her then boyfriend's job with her ex-boyfriend and made out with her ex-boyfriend in front of him as a way to signify she didn't want to be with him. Her then boyfriend was extremely sweet and never did anything to her. She just felt like doing that. Also another occurrence would be when my other cousin from my other side was blackout drunk and fighting with his girlfriend. She locked him out of her room and he pounded so hard on the door that his fist went through the door and ended up hitting her in the face, hard. Needless to say, is anyone down to come to any family reunions with me? Story 14. Of my many SHE mates, mortal and immortal both, the first was the goddess Métis, known as the Cunning. Métis thought herself cunning indeed, for it had been prophesied that she would bear a son more powerful than his father. By submitting herself to my carnal desires, she believed she would bear a child who would overthrow me and take my place as the king of the gods. Métis was not cunning enough, though, for her plan had no contingency to deal with the fact that after I had had my wanton way with her, I swallowed her whole. Story 15. I slept with his new girlfriend to break them up. My bisexuality was always an issue for him, and so when the opportunity presented itself, I ate that bitch out like a fat kid eats cake. Story 16. TLDR, artist girl dumped me after 4 years. In return, I created a startup, got acquired by a bigger company, used part of my earnings to build a gallery in New York and Paris for my new girlfriend to be curator and part owner, allowed most of my ex-girlfriend's friends to showcase their work in these gallery, except of course her. Bonus, I also collaborated with her hated ex-boyfriend to get his works published in multiple notable magazines and publications as to majorly jumpstart his postgraduate career. In essence, my revenge was helping everyone except her. Story 17. I dated this girl for about a year before I left for the military. It was tough, but we promised to stay together. Her best friend's older brother had always had a thing for her and I knew it. We exchanged a few heated words before, but nothing too uncivil. We were both 18, and he was like 25. No good job. Played in a shitty band. Total creepy buck. So, all throughout boot camp I sent her letters and whatnot. Never got one back. The day I returned home on leave, she called me and informed me that she had been seeing him the entire time I was in boot camp and that they were now engaged. We pretty much ended contact there. This was back in 2005. Fast forward to a few years later, she requests me as a friend on Facebook. I had no moral feelings so I accepted, but never really talked to her. I had a girlfriend at the time, so I didn't really care. This past summer, the girlfriend and I split, and as soon as my relationship status changed, she sends me a message out of nowhere wondering how I'm doing. I casually chat with her for a few hours and she eventually spills that her marriage is shit and that he's a huge asshole and whatnot. They also have a kid together, too. We exchange phone numbers and start talking. Then it turned into flirting, then some pretty heavy soul shit. Then she goes on to say how much she still loves me and what a huge mistake she made. She wants to be with me and divorce him, blah blah blah. So the next time I went back home to visit I ring her up. We go out and eventually buck in some random motel. I remembering her planning her divorce and our future together yada yada. Wake up. Put my clothes on and bounce out of there. Took a picture of her completely naked laying next to me in bed giving the camera the middle finger. Got home, deleted number and blocked from Facebook. Haven't talked to her since. I'm still debating on whether or not I should send it to him. I think it would be some epic trollage 5 years in the making. Story 18. My ex-girlfriend was very violent, and would attack me quite frequently. I know, I was a bitch for putting up with it. Well, one time we were on my front porch and she started attacking me. Since she was a lot smaller, she was 5 feet 2 or so, I'm 6 feet 2, I got her in a headlock to stop her. Once she was in a headlock she started grabbing my nuts. This hurt so bad that I started backing up. Well, little did I realize I was right near the top of my steps, and I proceeded to step up the steps and DDT her down the stairway. We both landed on the ground and she got up and started yelling, but the DDT still felt great. TLDR, DDT'd my ex down some steps. Story 19. Found out he was cheating on me with a girl I went to school with. It just popped in my head one day that they were bucking around together. I messaged her, asking if she knew him. She said that yes, they were seeing each other. I said that I was seeing him too, she didn't know about it. My best friend and I went to his work. He worked at his mom's flower shop in a grocery store, to see him. When we walked in together, arm in arm, his jaw hit the floor. We proceeded to scream at him for the next 2 hours, his mom listening to how he was cheating on, well, both of us with the other. A few months later, he was dating a girl I worked with. Then we discovered he was cheating with the same girl. You'd think she'd have learned not to fool around with this guy by now, but whatever, so I gave the girlfriend her number. They collaborated to set up a sting. The boyfriend blew off plans with girlfriend to secretly meet up with mistress. The plan was to go to Starbucks with the mistress, so girlfriend showed up, busted him, screamed at him and punched him in the face. Everyone got kicked out. Needless to say, that relationship was also over. Story 20. After a long 6 months of working evenings at my new job to support us, I came home to my ex sleeping in our bed. I didn't trust her, as we hadn't been having sex for months, and other things seemed slightly amiss, so I broke the trust and searched through her cell phone for any indication as to what might be happening and why. I found a text from her to a guy, talking about how she couldn't wait to meet up with him and suck his cock. I gathered all of my things and put them in my car, took her cell phone, which I paid for and was paying for the service for, grabbed a plunger, dipped it in the toilet, walked into the bedroom, and standing above her like some sort of goddamned maniacal ring wraith, I plunged her in the face with the sopping rubber end. Yes, suction was achieved. The short amount of screaming and the display of her cell phone to her now moist face drove the point home before I walked out and drove off.